From Ned Stark getting beheaded right at the start of the show, to Daenerys Targaryen getting stabbed by the only man she had complete faith in. Here are the Game of Thrones deaths that ruined the series. Starting off with a character who really should have gotten the justice he was seeking, Oberyn Martell. You see, after defeating the Mountain, Oberyn starts to demand that the Mountain admit he assaulted and killed Oberyn's sister, Elia. In the world of Game of Thrones, this works out the way you'd expect. Just a moment later, Oberyn trips over the Mountain, and the Mountain punches out his teeth. The Mountain then sticks his fingers into Oberyn's eyes, which causes his head to blow up. Honestly, the visuals and sounds from this scene definitely rank high on our list of gruesome scenes.
I am the brother of Elia Martell. And do you know why I've come all the way to this stinking pile of a city? For you?
What angered a lot of people in this scene was that Oberyn had in fact defeated the Mountain, and while he still wanted some level of closure by demanding an apology, the fact that he got killed over it was insanely unnecessary. I mean, just like the Lannisters, the Mountain was a horrible person who deserved to die at Oberyn's hands. But instead, we got a death that left so many of us with an incredibly bad taste in our mouths. But while Game of Thrones doesn't mind letting some of its brightest soldiers get justice, they also don't mind killing off their main characters. And this is something we realized for the first time when Ned Stark was killed in Season 1. Hell, even some of the reactions online suggested that many people had even stopped watching the show after this season. The way this happened, though, is that Ned was killed in the first season when he found out that Cersei's children and her heirs were not her real children. And even Ned's children, Sansa and Arya, were both there when he died. Even worse, Joffrey made Sansa look at Ned's severed head on a stick. Ned was a very honest and loyal man, but he died a rogue, which is what angered so many of us who watched this scene. Also, because he died, Jon's parents weren't exposed until the last season, a piece of information that could have been revealed a lot sooner if Ned had lived. Some Redditors even pointed out that this death made Joffrey a truly horrible person moving further into the show. Say what you want, but there are no words to explain how brutal and evil some Game of Thrones moments are. And Shireen Baratheon's death is the perfect example of how the show can leave its fans feeling sad and scared, because Shireen was probably the most innocent and blameless person who was killed, and her own father did it for a completely stupid reason. You see, Stannis Baratheon's daughter was always ignored by her mother. She also had a deformed face and was basically locked away in a tower for so long. Even then, though, she's always ready to help her dad in any way she can, no matter what. What she doesn't know is that her father has lost all sense of reality because he blindly follows Melisandre. This makes Stannis think that the only way to get over his losses on his way to take over Winterfell is to burn his young daughter at the stake. This scene created an outrage online because many of us wanted to see her finally get the kind of love and affection she had never received at home. But that, sadly, never happened. In kind of the same category, we also saw another character who had actually worked super hard to get where she wanted to go. But alas, Daenerys Targaryen, it just wasn't meant to be. What looked like Daenerys' hero's journey to get to the Iron Throne turned out to be a tragedy when she lost herself in the death and damage of King's Landing. No doubt her storyline is the saddest in the whole show. And even though we know Jon kinda had to kill her, it's still sad because she was one of our most beloved heroes for most of the show. In retrospect, I don't think the 8th season was that bad, but her Mad Queen story felt a little rushed because when you look at Daenerys' character arc, it was actually one of the best, if not the best, in all of Game of Thrones. She was a fighter, a leader, and a queen. She fought her whole life and truly thought that her fate was to be the master of the 7 kingdoms. But imagine getting there and then being stabbed by the one man you loved and trusted. It's brutal. And this was also one of those moments when a lot of people started questioning whether watching the show moving forward would be worth it. Honestly, it makes sense why you'd feel dejected after you've invested in a character for so long. Then there's absolutely no way we can talk about the most shocking deaths in this series and not mention the Red Wedding. I mean, losing Robb Stark was actually that bizarre. Not only him though, because this marked the time we also lost Catelyn. Talisa, Robb's direwolf Greywin, and a lot more Stark bannermen, all to Walder Frey and Roose Bolton. To put things into perspective, the Red Wedding blew up the show's story, gave us one of the worst hits ever to the good guys, and accidentally started a never-ending slew of reaction videos that destroyed the digital world until the end of the show. But as horrible as the Red Wedding was, it had one of the most famous lines in a series full of them, cementing the Lannister family's reputation as one of the worst people in the world. Basically, as Roose Bolton sank a knife into Robb Stark's heart, he might as well have been talking to all of us when he said, "The Lannisters send their regards."
Mother. The Lannisters send their regards.
As unbearably angry as some of these scenes made us feel, there were others that were truly heartbreaking to watch, like finally finding out the story behind Hodor. Not many people thought that Hodor's past would have such a big effect on everyone. You see, his death is sad because of how innocent and long-lasting his character was. But the most shocking thing is finding out that Bran Stark is the reason why Hodor can only say Hodor. It gets really sad when we find out that Hodor is just a slurred version of "Hold the door," which Mira Reed shouts to Hodor as he tries to stop the army of whites chasing the group. This could only mean that Hodor knew exactly when his moment of death would come, since Bran warged it into him many years ago. And the fact that they ended the episode with nothing but Hodor saying Hodor over and over again literally feels like a knife straight to our hearts. Speaking of breaking hearts and then sewing it back, is this the part where Jon Snow was killed? Having your men turn on you and get you killed more than once is a horrible way to die for sure. And one of the most shocking deaths on the show. This is what happened to Jon Snow. After he became Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, Jon chose to change some of the group's rules. And because his subordinates didn't like these changes, they decided to turn on him. In this scene, Jon was happy as he ran down the stairs at Castle Black, but he was shocked when he learned that Ollie had led him to his grave. Many members of the Night's Watch had gathered to stab their Lord Commander in the heart and leave him alone in the snow to die. You see, when you end a character's story like that, and then practically end the season right after, everyone's going to assume he's dead forever. And during that time, to say many people were super angry would be an understatement. Obviously, we know now that he actually comes back, but during the next break between seasons, poor Harrington had to avoid questions about whether or not he was really dead. Those who knew that Jon was the son of Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen thought that his return was clear, especially since he's been one of the main characters since the beginning. But if Ned's death taught us anything, it's that anyone can die at any time. And Jon's unclear fate made many people wonder if the Stark bastard had seen his last days or not. And on that note, that's all for the Game of Thrones deaths that ruined the series.